What if I told you that the chaos around you doesn't have to control how you feel? That no matter what's happening, whether it's a stressful day at work, a fight with a loved one, or even a major life setback, you can still stay calm, focused, and in control? Sounds impossible, right? But here's the truth. Your mind is like a muscle, and just like any muscle, it can be trained. Let me show you how. Life is unpredictable. Some days everything goes your way. Other days, it feels like the world is against you. But here's the thing. The difference between people who thrive in chaos and those who crumble under pressure isn't luck or talent. It's how they've trained their minds. Today, we're diving deep into how you can build that same mental strength. This isn't about avoiding problems. It's about mastering how you respond to them. By the end of this, you'll have practical tools to stay calm, no matter what life throws at you. The power of perception, the moment you wake up. Each morning, you begin making choices. Most are small and seemingly inconsequential. What to wear, what to eat, which route to take to work. But beneath these everyday decisions lies something profound. Your perception, which shapes everything you experience. Consider two people facing identical circumstances. Both are stuck in heavy traffic on their way to an important meeting. The first person grips the steering wheel tightly, cursing under their breath, blood pressure rising with each passing minute. The second person accepts the situation, puts on their favorite podcast, and uses the time to mentally prepare for their meeting. Same circumstance, dramatically different experience. This isn't just positive thinking, it's a fundamental truth about human consciousness. Nothing in your life has inherent meaning until you assign it meaning. The promotion you received last month? It could represent validation of your hard work, or perhaps the terrifying burden of higher expectations. The relationship that ended? It might be a painful rejection or the doorway to newfound freedom. The meaning doesn't exist in the event itself, but in how you choose to interpret it. Many of us move through life unaware of this power. We believe our reactions are inevitable responses to external events, as if we're merely passengers in our own lives. Of course I'm upset. Anyone would be. But this perspective surrenders your greatest power, the ability to choose how you experience your life. Think about the most resilient people you know. What distinguishes them isn't an absence of challenges, but their relationship to those challenges. They've mastered the art of reframing difficulties as opportunities for growth. When they face setbacks, they ask, "What can I learn from this?" rather than, "Why is this happening to me?" This simple shift transforms obstacles from roadblocks into stepping stones. The practice of conscious perception begins with awareness. Start noticing how quickly you assign meaning to events. When your colleague doesn't acknowledge your greeting, do you immediately think they're angry with you? When your business proposal gets rejected, do you instantly label yourself a failure? These interpretations happen so rapidly that they feel like objective reality rather than subjective choices. Challenge these automatic interpretations. Ask yourself, is this the only way to see this situation? What other meanings could I assign? This isn't about denying reality or suppressing genuine emotions. It's about exploring alternative perspectives that might serve you better. Consider a job loss. One perspective sees it as a devastating blow to your identity and financial security. Another sees it as a needed push toward something better aligned with your talents and passions. Both perspectives can acknowledge the practical challenges, but they create vastly different emotional landscapes and action plans. This practice requires humility. It means recognizing that your initial interpretation isn't necessarily the true one. It's just one possibility among many. This humility opens the door to greater wisdom and flexibility in how you navigate life's complexities. The power of perception extends beyond individual events to your broader life narrative. Are you the victim of circumstances beyond your control? The hero overcoming adversity? The student continually learning and evolving? The story you tell yourself becomes the framework through which you experience everything. Practical application starts with language. Notice the words you use to describe your experiences, both to others and in your internal dialogue. Words like disaster, terrible, or impossible create a very different emotional reality than challenge, unexpected, or opportunity. Your vocabulary literally constructs your experience. Time perspective also influences perception. When something difficult happens, project yourself forward a year or 5 years. Ask, will this matter then? How might I view this situation with the benefit of hindsight? This temporal shift often reveals that many of our most intense reactions are to matters that won't significantly impact our long-term well-being. The physical environment affects perception too. A cluttered, chaotic space promotes stressed, fragmented thinking. Create environments that support clarity and calm. Sometimes simply changing your physical location, stepping outside for fresh air, or moving to a different room can shift your perspective on a challenging situation. Relationships fundamentally shape perception as well. Surround yourself with people who offer balanced, growth-oriented perspectives. One toxic voice can distort your perception more than a dozen supportive ones. Choose carefully who you allow to influence your interpretations of events and yourself. Your physical state dramatically impacts perception. Exhaustion, hunger, or illness can turn minor inconveniences into seemingly insurmountable problems. Caring for your basic needs isn't selfishness, it's essential maintenance of your perceptual apparatus. Practicing gratitude deliberately shifts perception. When facing difficulties, identify 5 things about the situation that you can appreciate. This doesn't erase the challenge, but places it within a broader context that includes positive elements easily overlooked when focused solely on problems. Remember, that perception isn't just about avoiding negative interpretations. It's equally about enhancing your experience of life's joys. Many people rush through positive experiences without fully savoring them. Train yourself to notice and amplify pleasant moments through conscious attention. The ultimate goal isn't constant positivity, it's perceptual flexibility. Different situations call for different perspectives. Sometimes you need critical thinking to identify genuine problems. Other times you need optimism to persevere through difficulties. Wisdom lies in knowing which perspective serves you best in each circumstance. Your perception creates your reality, not in a magical sense, but in the practical ways your interpretations shape your emotions, decisions, and actions. By consciously choosing how you perceive life's events, you reclaim authorship of your experience. This isn't just a technique for managing stress, it's the foundation of a life lived with intention and purpose. The pause principle. Between stimulus and response lies a space. In that space exists your freedom and power to choose. These words, inspired by the insights of distinguished thinkers in psychology, contain the essence of what I call the pause principle, a fundamental practice that can transform your experience of life's most challenging moments. Consider how often we react automatically to situations. Your colleague makes a critical comment, and immediately you feel defensive, perhaps responding with a sharp retort you later regret. Your child spills juice on important documents, and you snap in frustration before you've even processed what happened. Your investment loses value, and panic drives you to sell at precisely the wrong moment. In each case, the absence of a pause between trigger and reaction leads to outcomes you wouldn't consciously choose. This automatic reactivity isn't your fault, it's built into your biology. Your brain evolved prioritizing speed over accuracy when responding to potential threats. The amygdala, that ancient part of your brain responsible for processing emotions, can activate your stress response before your prefrontal cortex, the seat of higher reasoning, has even received the information. This was excellent design for avoiding predators on the savannah, but it's often counterproductive in navigating modern complexities. The pause is your tool for disrupting this automatic process. It's simple in concept, but profound in application. When triggered, create a momentary space before responding. This might be a single conscious breath, a silent count to 10, or stepping away for a few minutes. The form matters less than the function, interrupting the automatic stimulus-response cycle and creating room for conscious choice. What happens in this space? First, your physiological arousal begins to subside. The initial flood of stress hormones diminishes, allowing your blood pressure to normalize and your muscles to relax. Your breathing steadies, increasing oxygen flow to your brain. These physical changes directly impact your cognitive capacity, enabling access to your full intelligence rather than just your reactive patterns. With this physiological foundation established, your awareness expands. You notice not just the triggering event, but the context surrounding it. You recognize your emotional reaction as information rather than command. You access memories of similar situations and their outcomes. You connect with your deeper values and longer-term objectives. All of this happens in moments, but those moments make the difference between a response you'll stand behind and one you'll later regret. The pause isn't passive, it's intensely active. It's not avoidance, but engagement at a higher level. Think of it as shifting from automatic pilot to manual control of your most sophisticated machinery, your mind. This shift doesn't happen automatically. It requires practice to become your default approach to challenging situations. Begin by identifying your personal triggers, those situations that reliably provoke your strongest reactions. Common triggers include criticism, feeling disrespected, unexpected changes to plans, or perceived injustice. By knowing your triggers in advance, you can prepare to pause when they arise, rather than being caught off guard. Then establish your pause ritual, a specific action that creates that crucial space. Many find that focusing on their breath works. Effectively, inhale deeply through your nose for a count of 4, hold for a count of 2, then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. This controlled breathing pattern directly counters the shallow, rapid breathing characteristic of the stress response. Others find that physical displacement helps, stepping back a few feet, briefly leaving the room, or changing posture. Some use silent mantras. This is a moment for wisdom, or simply pause. The specific technique matters less than its effectiveness in creating that critical space between stimulus and response. Practice your pause ritual daily in low-stakes situations. When your phone notifications interrupt your work, pause before checking them. When waiting in a slow-moving line, pause before consulting your phone out of impatience. These small pauses build the neural pathways that make pausing possible in more challenging circumstances. As you develop this practice, you'll discover its applications extend far beyond avoiding regrettable reactions. The pause becomes a tool for deeper listening, truly hearing others rather than merely waiting for your turn to speak. It enables more thoughtful decision-making, especially under pressure. It creates space for creativity when facing complex problems. It allows for recognition of opportunities that might otherwise be missed in the rush to react. The pause principle reveals a profound truth. Most situations don't require immediate reaction. Despite the urgency we feel, we usually have more time than we believe. By claiming this time through intentional pausing, we access resources, internal and external, that remain unavailable in reactive mode. This practice also transforms relationships. When we respond reactively, we often address not the person before us, but shadows from our past, previous conflicts, old wounds, unresolved tensions. The pause allows us to see the actual person and situation, responding to what's truly happening, rather than to our projections and assumptions. In leadership contexts, the pause is particularly powerful. Leaders set the emotional tone for their organizations. A leader who reacts impulsively to challenges creates a culture of reactivity, where thoughtful consideration is sacrificed to the urgency of the moment. Conversely, a leader who visibly pauses before responding establishes psychological safety and models thoughtful engagement with complex issues. The pause principle applies equally to positive situations. When receiving good news or experiencing success, pausing allows for deeper appreciation and the opportunity to respond in ways aligned with your values rather than swept along by excitement. This balanced application prevents the pause from becoming associated solely with problems. Some resist the pause, fearing it signals weakness or indecision. The opposite is true. There is profound strength in demonstrating that you choose your responses rather than being driven by reactive impulses. There is powerful intentionality in showing that you value wisdom over mere quickness. The most influential people are rarely those who respond most rapidly, but those who respond most appropriately. With practice, the pause becomes less a technique and more a way of being. You'll find yourself naturally creating space between events and your responses. This doesn't mean becoming passive or detached. Quite the contrary. You become more genuinely engaged, responding from your full capacity rather than from your automated patterns. The most beautiful aspect of the pause principle is its accessibility. It requires no special equipment, credentials, or circumstances. It's available to you, in any moment, regardless of external conditions. This makes it one of the most democratic of all personal development practices, equally available to everyone willing to claim that space between stimulus and response. In a world that increasingly values speed above all, the intentional pause becomes not just a personal practice but a countercultural statement. It declares that thoughtfulness matters more than immediacy, that wisdom is worth the momentary wait, and that your responses deserve to come from your highest self rather than your reactive patterns. Your freedom exists in that space, the pause between what happens and how you respond. Claim it. Focus on what you can control. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, mind racing with worry about things entirely outside your influence? Perhaps it's the economy, your company's reorganization plans, or what others think about you. We all do this. Spend precious mental and emotional energy on circumstances we cannot change. But this habit doesn't just waste time. It actively diminishes our effectiveness where it matters most. Consider this fundamental truth. In any situation, there are things within your control and things beyond it. The boundary between these two domains is one of the most important lines you'll ever draw in your life. On one side lies freedom, power, and possibility. On the other, frustration, anxiety, and wasted potential. The ancient Stoics understood this principle well. They taught that our distress comes not from events themselves, but from our judgments about those events. And the wisest judgment we can make is to recognize where our influence begins and ends. This isn't pessimism or passivity. It's the highest form of practicality. Look at the most accomplished people in any field. What distinguishes them isn't control over every variable. That's impossible. Rather, it's their laser focus on the variables they can affect. The championship athlete doesn't worry about the referee's calls or the weather conditions. They concentrate on their performance, preparation, and mindset. The successful entrepreneur doesn't obsess over market fluctuations beyond their influence. They focus on innovation, customer relationships, and execution within their sphere of control. Your circle of control always includes three fundamental elements: your thoughts, your actions, and your responses. No external force can dictate these unless you surrender that power. Even in the most constrained circumstances, these remain yours to determine. Start with your thoughts, the internal dialogue that shapes your experience more profoundly than any external circumstance. Notice how often your mind gravitates toward what you can't change. If only my parents had been more supportive. Why did they have to restructure the department? What if the market crashes? These thoughts create a sense of helplessness because they focus on factors beyond your influence. Instead, train your mind to ask more empowering questions. What can I do with what I have right now? How can I respond constructively to this situation? What opportunity might exist within this challenge? These questions direct your attention to your area of influence, where real progress becomes possible. Your actions form the second element within your control. While you can't always determine your circumstances, you can always decide your next move. This might mean developing new skills when facing career uncertainty, having difficult but necessary conversations when relationships falter, or adjusting your strategy when original plans go awry. Each action within your control creates ripples that gradually expand your sphere of influence. Finally, your responses, how you interpret and react to events, remain eternally within your domain. Two people can experience identical setbacks yet respond in completely different ways. One sees disaster and becomes paralyzed. The other sees a detour and adjusts accordingly. The difference isn't in their circumstances, but in their chosen response. This principle applies powerfully to relationships. You cannot control another person's actions, words, or feelings. Trying to do so only creates frustration for both parties. What you can control is how you communicate, the boundaries you establish, and the way you respond to their behavior. This shift in focus transforms relationships from power struggles into partnerships based on mutual respect for each person's autonomy. The same wisdom applies to your career. Market conditions, organizational politics, and technological disruptions may be beyond your direct control. But your skills, work ethic, professional relationships, and adaptation to change remain firmly within it. By investing energy here, you become valuable regardless of external factors. In personal development, this principle prevents the trap of comparison. You cannot control others' advantages, resources, or accomplishments. You can control your learning, habits, and consistent effort towards your goals. This focus not only produces better results, but also greater satisfaction, as your sense of worth stems from factors within your influence rather than external validation. For parents, this distinction is particularly crucial. You cannot control who your children ultimately become. Their personalities, preferences, and life choices will emerge from countless factors beyond your determination. But you can control the environment you create, the values you demonstrate, the support you offer, and the relationship you build. Focusing here not only makes you a more effective parent, but also a more peaceful one. Health challenges reveal this principle with special clarity. You may not control your genetic predispositions or certain health conditions, but you maintain tremendous influence over your nutrition, physical activity, stress management, preventive care, and treatment adherence. By concentrating on these controllable factors, you optimize your well-being regardless of inherent limitations. Financial concerns become more manageable through this lens as well. Market fluctuations, economic policies, and global events affecting your finances lie beyond your control. Your earning capacity, spending habits, savings rate, investment strategy, and financial education remain within it. This focus transforms money from a source of anxiety into an area of steady improvement. The beauty of focusing on what you can control extends beyond practical benefits. It fundamentally changes your emotional experience. Anxiety thrives on perceived helplessness. Concentrate on your sphere of influence, and that helplessness dissolves. Resentment clings to others' actions. Focus on your own responses, and resentment loses its grip. Overwhelm stems from perceiving too many demands. Direct your attention to your next controllable step, and clarity returns. This principle doesn't advise ignorance of larger circumstances. Awareness remains important, but it suggests a shift in the weight of your attention, like adjusting the aperture of a camera to highlight what matters most. Keep broader conditions in your peripheral vision while focusing primarily on your area of influence. Practical implementation begins with a simple sorting exercise. When facing any challenge, draw a line down the middle of a page. On one side, list everything about the situation that lies beyond your control. On the other, list everything within it. Then commit to releasing the first list and directing all your energy to the second. This tangible separation often provides immediate relief and clarity. Develop the habit of catching yourself when your thoughts drift toward the uncontrollable. Gently but firmly redirect your attention to your sphere of influence. This mental discipline, like any skill, strengthens with practice until it becomes your natural orientation. Remember that your circle of control isn't static. It expands as you exercise influence within it. What seems uncontrollable today may become influenceable tomorrow through consistent, focused effort in your current domain. This is how personal power grows over time, not through demanding control over the uncontrollable, but through mastering what already lies within your grasp. The ultimate freedom isn't having everything go your way. It's realizing that your well-being doesn't depend on everything going your way. When you ground yourself in what you can control, you develop an inner stability that external circumstances cannot easily disturb. This isn't just a technique for managing stress. It's a foundation for living with genuine power and peace. The practice of gratitude. What if I told you there's a practice so powerful it can transform your mental state in moments, improve your physical health, enhance your relationships, and increase your resilience, all without costing a penny or requiring special equipment? This isn't hyperbole. It's the scientifically validated practice of gratitude. Let me share a personal observation from years of working with people from all walks of life. Those who practice gratitude consistently experience life differently than those who don't. Even when facing identical challenges, the gratitude practitioner navigates them with a resilience, perspective, and inner resource that the chronic complainer simply cannot access. Consider what happens in your brain when you focus on what's wrong. Your mind narrows, becoming hyper-focused on problems and potential threats. This perspective, while sometimes necessary for solving specific issues, becomes toxic when it dominates your consciousness. Your stress hormones increase. Your blood pressure rises, your immune system weakens, and your overall sense of well-being diminishes. Now contrast this with what happens when you deliberately direct your attention to what's going right. Your mental focus broadens. You become more creative and resourceful. Your nervous system shifts from fight or flight to rest and digest. Your body produces more serotonin and dopamine, neurotransmitters associated with well-being and satisfaction. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to notice even more positive aspects of your situation, creating an upward spiral of awareness and appreciation. Gratitude isn't merely positive thinking or ignoring problems. It's a truthful acknowledgement of the good that exists alongside the challenges. It doesn't require pretending everything is perfect, only recognizing that even in imperfect circumstances, there are genuine gifts worthy of your recognition and appreciation. The transformative power of gratitude begins with a simple shift in attention. Right now, wherever you are, whatever challenges you face, there are aspects of your reality deserving appreciation. Perhaps it's the functioning of your body, lungs that breathe without conscious effort, a heart that beats reliably, eyes that perceive the world in color. Perhaps it's relationships, people who care about your well-being, who share your journey, who've taught you important lessons. Perhaps it's opportunities, education you've received, freedoms you enjoy, chances to grow and contribute. These aren't trivial observations. They're profound recognitions of the foundation upon which your life rests. When you acknowledge them, you ground yourself in a more complete truth about your existence, one that includes difficulties but isn't defined by them. Neuroscience explains why this practice is so effective. Your brain cannot simultaneously hold gratitude and negative emotions like anxiety or resentment. When you deliberately cultivate gratitude, you're literally reshaping your neural pathways, creating what scientists call experience-dependent neuroplasticity. You're training your brain to notice what's good, building neural networks that automatically scan for positives rather than exclusively focusing on threats or lacks. The research on gratitude's benefits is compelling. Studies show that regular gratitude practice reduces depression, lowers blood pressure, improves sleep quality, strengthens immune function, and even extends lifespan. In relationships, expressed gratitude creates an upward spiral of generosity and goodwill. In workplaces, it increases job satisfaction and reduces burnout. For individuals, it enhances resilience during difficult times, not by eliminating challenges, but by providing the emotional resources to face them effectively. So how do you transform gratitude from a nice concept into a life-changing practice? Begin with deliberate daily attention. Set aside time each morning or evening to identify 3 to 5 specific things you appreciate. The key word here is specific. Rather than generic statements like, "I'm grateful for my health," identify particular aspects. "I'm grateful for the energy I felt during my walk today," or "I'm grateful my back pain has lessened enough to play with my children." Specificity matters because it grounds gratitude in concrete reality rather than abstract concepts. It engages your senses and emotions more fully, creating a richer neural experience that strengthens the pattern. The more detailed your observation, the more powerful its impact on your consciousness. Writing amplifies these benefits. A gratitude journal, physical or digital, creates a record of good that accumulates over time, becoming a resource you can revisit during difficult periods. The act of writing also slows your thinking, allowing for deeper processing and integration than mental gratitude alone. Expand the practice by expressing gratitude directly to others. The simple words, "thank you," carry remarkable power when delivered, with sincerity and specificity. Thank you for listening so carefully during our conversation yesterday. It made me feel truly understood affects both parties profoundly. The recipient experiences validation and appreciation. You reinforce your own awareness of this positive aspect of your relationship. Challenge yourself to find gratitude in unexpected places. What might you appreciate about that difficult colleague? Who tests your patience? Perhaps their challenging questions have strengthened your ability to articulate your ideas. What gifts might be hidden within that health setback? Perhaps it's revealed the depth of support in your relationships or taught you compassion for others' invisible struggles. This isn't about manufacturing false positivity, but discovering genuine value that might otherwise remain unacknowledged. The most transformative gratitude often emerges from our greatest challenges, not for the hardship itself, but for the growth, insights, and connections it ultimately enables. Make gratitude tangible through rituals. Some families share appreciations before meals. Some leaders begin meetings by recognizing team contributions. Some friends exchange weekly gratitude texts. These structures ensure the practice remains consistent rather than happening only when spontaneously remembered. Address the common obstacles to sustained gratitude practice. If you find yourself thinking, "I have nothing to be grateful for," zoom out to more basic blessings, clean water, shelter, literacy, or zoom in to smaller joys, the taste of your morning coffee, a moment of laughter, the feeling of sunshine. If you worry that gratitude will lead to complacency, remember that appreciation and aspiration can coexist perfectly. You can be grateful for your current job while working toward a better one. Perhaps the most powerful application of gratitude comes during your most difficult moments. When facing significant loss, disappointment, or challenge, gratitude becomes not an escape from reality, but an anchor within it. It reminds you that even as one part of your life unravels, other threads remain strong. It provides perspective that prevents catastrophizing. It connects you to resources, internal and external, that support your resilience. The practice of gratitude ultimately creates a fundamental shift in how you move through the world. You develop what psychologists call abundance consciousness, an awareness of the richness that exists alongside scarcity, the gifts that accompany burdens, the opportunities within challenges. This consciousness doesn't eliminate life's difficulties, but it ensures they don't eliminate your awareness of life's goodness. Begin today. Not because your life is perfect, but because within its imperfection lie countless blessings worthy of your recognition. The quality of your life doesn't depend primarily on what happens to you, but on what you notice and how you respond. Choose to notice the good. Let gratitude become not just something you do occasionally, but a lens through which you see everything. The art of letting go. There's a profound paradox at the heart of human experience. We must care deeply about many things while simultaneously being willing to release them. This delicate balance, investing fully without clinging desperately, defines the art of letting go, perhaps the most essential skill for both achievement and serenity in life. Consider what happens when you hold something tightly in your fist. Your muscles tense, circulation decreases, and after a while, pain develops. The same item held in an open palm remains fully in your possession, but without the tension, restriction, and eventual suffering. This physical metaphor perfectly illustrates our relationship with experiences, emotions, expectations, and attachments. Begin by understanding what letting go is not. It isn't resignation or giving up. It's not indifference or emotional numbness. It's certainly not pretending that painful things don't matter. Rather, letting go is a conscious release of our counterproductive grip on situations, emotions, and outcomes, a grip that creates suffering while solving nothing. The need for this skill appears throughout life. There are past injuries and disappointments that replay endlessly in our minds. Relationships that didn't unfold as we hoped. Plans derailed by circumstances beyond our control. Expectations of ourselves and others that remain persistently unmet. Possessions, positions, and identities we fear losing. Each presents an opportunity to practice either clinging or releasing. When you cling to past hurts, you grant them permission to colonize your present. That argument from 3 years ago, the promotion that went to someone else, the thoughtless comment that cut deeply, none of these experiences can be undone. But each can be relived indefinitely through the mechanism of rumination, transforming a single painful event into a perpetual source of suffering. Letting go of these past wounds doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't excuse harmful behavior or deny legitimate grievances. It simply means refusing to continue carrying what no longer serves you. As the saying goes, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Releasing this grip is an act of self-compassion, not weakness. The same principle applies to unmet expectations, perhaps the most common source of suffering in daily life. We develop detailed mental scripts for how situations should unfold, how people should behave, how our lives should progress. When reality inevitably deviates from these scripts, our instinct is to clutch tighter to our expectations, creating friction with what actually is. Consider how this plays out in relationships. You expect your partner to notice your needs without explicit communication. You expect your colleagues to work with your precise level of diligence and attention to detail. You expect your children to value what you value, prioritize what you prioritize. Each expectation, when unmet, becomes a source of resentment and conflict. Letting go in these contexts doesn't mean abandoning all standards or boundaries. It means releasing the rigid insistence that your precise expectations be met. It's the difference between "this must happen exactly as I envision" and "this is my preference, but I can adapt to a different outcome." The first stance creates brittleness. The second allows flexibility and resilience. The art of letting go extends to material possessions as well. In a culture that often equates having with being, the accumulation of things can become a substitute for genuine fulfillment. We cling to possessions not just for their utility, but for their perceived contribution to our identity and status. The crowded closets, packed garages, and burgeoning storage units in our society testify to the difficulty of releasing this grip. Those who master the material dimension of letting go discover something surprising. Possessions often possess us, rather than the reverse. Each item demands maintenance, protection, insurance, storage, and mental bandwidth. Releasing unnecessary possessions isn't deprivation, but liberation. A reclaiming of space, attention, and resources for what truly matters. Perhaps the most challenging application of this principle involves releasing our grip on desired outcomes. You work diligently toward a goal, a particular career advancement, relationship development, or personal achievement, investing substantial time, energy, and emotional capital. When the outcome differs from your vision, the natural response is to grasp tighter, trying to force reality into alignment with your expectations. The art of letting go offers an alternative. Maintain your dedication to the process while releasing your attachment to specific results. This stance, fully engaged yet not desperately attached, allows you to respond fluidly to changing circumstances rather than breaking under them. It's the difference between the rigid oak that snaps in strong winds and the flexible willow that bends without breaking. This approach transforms how you experience even your most important life endeavors. Consider parenting. You pour yourself into guiding, teaching, and nurturing your children, naturally developing visions of who they'll become. When they make choices that diverge from these visions, as independent beings inevitably will, your response reveals your relationship to letting go. Those who cling to their expectations often damage the very relationships they value most. Those who can release their specific visions while maintaining their underlying care create space for authentic connection. The workplace provides similar opportunities. You develop a proposal, create a presentation, or implement a strategy, inevitably becoming invested in its success and recognition. When your work is criticized, modified, or even rejected, the art of letting go enables you to extract valuable feedback without experiencing it as personal rejection. Your professional growth stems not from clinging to every idea, but from willingness to release what doesn't serve the larger goal. Even your relationship with yourself benefits from this. Practice. Many of us cling to outdated self-images. beliefs about our capabilities, characteristics, and potential that may have formed decades ago. Whether these images are negative, "I'm not good at technical subjects," or seemingly positive but limiting, "I'm the responsible one who never makes mistakes," they constrain who you can become. Letting go of these fixed identities creates space for growth and discovery. How do you develop this crucial capacity? Like any art, it requires both understanding and practice. Begin by noticing your grip, the physical and emotional sensations of clinging. Tension in your body, circular thoughts that refuse resolution, emotional reactivity disproportionate to current circumstances, these are reliable indicators of attachment that may require release. Conscious breathing provides a practical entry point to letting go. When you notice yourself clinging, take several deep, slow breaths, imagining that you're creating space around the situation or emotion. This simple practice interrupts the physiological patterns of attachment and activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which supports release rather than resistance. Question the stories that maintain your grip. I can never be happy unless this specific outcome occurs. I cannot move forward until this person apologizes. My life is ruined because this didn't work out as planned. These narratives, when examined, rarely withstand scrutiny. Challenging them weakens their hold on your mind and emotions. Practice physical releasing as a gateway to emotional and mental letting go. Regularly clear unnecessary possessions from your living space. Complete unfinished tasks that occupy mental bandwidth. Delete old emails and files. These tangible releases create a foundation for the subtler practice of releasing intangible attachments. Develop release rituals for significant letting go challenges. Write about what you're releasing, then burn the paper. Visualize placing the burden down by a river and watching it float away. Speak your release aloud to a trusted friend who can witness your intention. These symbolic acts engage multiple dimensions of your being in the release process. Remember that letting go is rarely a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice of recognizing attachment, choosing release, and redirecting energy toward what you can constructively influence. Some attachments, particularly those involving deep losses or long-held beliefs, may require multiple releases over time. This doesn't indicate failure, but the natural unfolding of the process. The ultimate paradox of letting go is that it doesn't diminish your life, but enriches it. When you release what you cannot control, you reclaim energy for what you can influence. When you stop requiring specific outcomes, you open yourself to unexpected possibilities. When you surrender the need to be right, you create space for deeper understanding. What felt like loss reveals itself as liberation. The art of letting go, practiced consistently, transforms not just how you handle difficulties, but how you experience life itself. You move through the world with both full engagement and lighthearted non-attachment, caring deeply without the suffering of clinging. This balance represents not just practical wisdom, but spiritual maturity, available to anyone willing to persistently practice opening their grip when closing it comes more naturally. Building mental resilience life will test you. That's not pessimism, it's reality. The question isn't whether challenges will come, but how you'll respond when they do. Mental resilience is that capacity to face adversity and not just survive it, but emerge stronger on the other side. Think about how physical strength develops. When you lift weights, you're actually creating tiny tears in your muscle fibers. During recovery, those fibers rebuild stronger than before. Mental resilience works remarkably similarly, except the weights are life's challenges and the muscle is your mind. Many people misunderstand resilience, viewing it as an innate quality that some possess and others don't. Nothing could be further from the truth. Resilience is cultivated through practice and experience. Each difficulty you face and overcome becomes part of your psychological immune system, preparing you for future challenges. Consider two individuals facing identical setbacks. The first crumbles under pressure, spiraling into negative thought patterns. This always happens to me. I'll never succeed. Everything is falling apart. The second acknowledges the difficulty, but approaches it differently. This is temporary. I've overcome challenges before. There's something to learn here. The difference isn't their circumstances, but their resilience capacity. Building this mental strength begins with embracing discomfort rather than avoiding it. Comfort zones feel safe, but they're terrible places for growth. Every time you willingly step into a challenging situation, whether it's having a difficult conversation, learning a new skill, or facing a fear, you're building resilience. Language plays a crucial role in this process. Notice how you speak to yourself during difficulties. Are you harsh and critical or supportive and encouraging? Would you speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself? Resilient people develop an inner voice that acknowledges struggles without being defined by them. Failure, properly understood, becomes a powerful resilience builder. Each setback contains information about yourself, your strategies, your environment that can fuel future success. The resilient mind asks, "What can I learn here?" rather than, "Why does this always happen to me?" Remember that resilience isn't about suppressing emotions or maintaining a false positivity. It's about experiencing difficult feelings while not being overwhelmed by them. Allow yourself to feel disappointment, frustration, or sadness, but don't set up permanent residence in those emotions. The daily practices of your life either build or erode resilience. Regular physical activity, adequate sleep, healthy nutrition, and meaningful social connections create the foundation upon which mental strength develops. A depleted body makes for a vulnerable mind. Perhaps most importantly, resilience requires perspective. The ability to step back and see challenges within the broader context of your life turns mountains back into molehills. Ask yourself, how will I view this situation a year from now? This temporal distance often reveals that what feels devastating in the moment is merely a temporary obstacle on a longer journey. As you face today's challenges, whether major crises or minor annoyances, remember that you're not just solving problems. You're building the mental strength that will serve you for a lifetime. Each difficulty becomes an investment in your future capacity to handle whatever life brings your way. The role of routine. In a world that often celebrates spontaneity and novelty, the power of routine is frequently overlooked. Yet the most successful, balanced individuals understand a fundamental truth. Consistent daily practices create the foundation for exceptional results and emotional steadiness. Consider the lives of high performers across disciplines, from world-class athletes to groundbreaking artists to influential leaders. Look closely, and you'll find that beneath their remarkable achievements lies a scaffold of routine. These aren't rigid, joyless schedules, but intentional patterns that free their energy for what matters most. Your mind and body thrive on predictability. When certain activities happen at expected times, your physiology aligns accordingly. Your digestive system activates in anticipation of regular meals. Your brain releases melatonin as bedtime approaches. Your stress hormones naturally rise to meet the day when you wake consistently. These biological rhythms, when honored, create a state of physiological ease that translates to psychological calm. The morning routine deserves special attention, as it sets the tone for everything that follows. The first hour after waking represents a crucial opportunity to prime your mental state. Whether it includes meditation, movement, meaningful reading, or creative work, this time, protected from the world's demands, allows you to begin each day from a centered place rather than in reactive mode. Small, consistent habits create remarkable outcomes over time. A daily 10-minute meditation practice, maintained for a year, gives you over 60 hours of mindfulness training. 30 minutes of daily movement adds up to 182 hours of physical conditioning annually. These modest investments, made regularly, compound into transformative results that cannot be achieved through occasional intensive efforts. Routine creates space for presence by eliminating unnecessary decisions. When you don't have to decide whether to exercise, when to work on important projects, or how to structure your day, you free mental bandwidth for deeper engagement with whatever you're doing. This decision fatigue, when unaddressed, gradually erodes your capacity for focused attention and emotional regulation. The most effective routines include deliberate transitions between activities. These micro-boundaries, Whether a short walk between meetings, a moment of deep breathing before entering your home, or a brief journaling session at day's end, prevent the stress of one domain from bleeding into another. They allow you to close mental tabs rather than accumulating open windows that drain your system's resources. While structure provides stability, rigidity creates fragility. Effective routines bend without breaking when life inevitably throws curveballs. Build. Buffer time into your schedule. Create contingency plans for disruptions. Identify the non-negotiable elements that maintain your foundation even when other aspects must shift. Notice the difference between routines that energize and those that deplete. Some activities, even seemingly positive ones like checking news or scrolling social media, may leave you feeling drained rather than resourced. Eliminate these energy leaks and replace them with practices that genuinely support your well-being, regardless of their popularity or external approval. The evening. Routine deserves as much attention as its morning counterpart. The hours before sleep profoundly impact both rest quality and mental state upon waking. Create deliberate wind-down practices that signal to your body and mind that the day's striving is complete. This might include lowering lights, disconnecting from screens, gentle movement, or reflective practices that process the day's experiences. Remember that effective routines aren't developed overnight. Begin with small, sustainable changes rather than dramatic overhauls that won't last. Focus on consistency over intensity. Track what works and what doesn't, refining your approach based on real results rather than idealized expectations. The goal isn't perfection, but progress toward patterns that genuinely serve your well-being and aspirations. Your daily routine isn't merely a schedule. It's the embodiment of your priorities and values transformed into consistent action. When thoughtfully designed and maintained, it becomes the invisible architecture that supports extraordinary living. The bigger picture. In the crush of daily demands and challenges, we easily lose perspective. The deadline, the disagreement, the disappointment. These immediate concerns can expand to fill our entire field of vision until they seem all-encompassing. This narrowed focus triggers our stress response, making even minor obstacles feel like existential threats. But there's a profound antidote to this psychological myopia, the practice of zooming out to see the bigger picture. This isn't merely positive thinking. It's a skill that transforms how you experience life's inevitable difficulties. Consider how different Earth looks when viewed from space. Borders disappear. Cities become tiny points of light. Mountain ranges that seem insurmountable at ground level appear as slight textures on a vast sphere. Your challenges undergo a similar transformation when viewed from sufficient distance. This perspective shift begins with a simple question. How will this matter in 5 years? Most issues that consume our attention today, the traffic jam, the critical comment, the minor failure, will leave no trace in our lives within months, let alone years. Even genuinely significant challenges, job losses, relationship endings, financial setbacks, eventually become chapters in a longer story rather than the story itself. Time offers the most natural perspective. When facing difficulties, mentally project yourself forward. Imagine looking back on today's challenge from next month, next year, or a decade hence. From that vantage point, what aspects of the situation will remain significant? What will have faded in importance? This temporal distance doesn't invalidate your current feelings, but places them within a broader context. Scale provides another dimension of perspective. Consider your concern within progressively larger contexts. From your immediate circumstances, to your entire life journey, to your family's history, to human history, to the cosmic scale. As you expand the frame, individual problems naturally resize themselves. This isn't to dismiss your legitimate concerns, but to see them with greater accuracy. Purpose creates perhaps the most powerful perspective shift. When you connect today's challenges to your deeper values and longer-term aspirations, their meaning transforms. A difficult conversation becomes an investment in authentic relationship. A professional setback becomes an opportunity to realign with your true calling. A personal disappointment becomes an invitation to greater self-knowledge. The challenge hasn't changed, but its relationship to what matters most has been clarified. Remember that perspective isn't something you achieve once and maintain permanently. It's a practice you return to whenever you feel yourself contracting around a problem. Make it tangible through physical cues, perhaps looking up at the sky, stepping outside, or simply shifting your gaze from the close-up to the distance. These physical movements can initiate powerful mental shifts. The practice of gaining perspective doesn't mean ignoring legitimate problems or avoiding necessary action. Quite the opposite. It allows you to address challenges with greater wisdom and efficiency by distinguishing between what needs your full attention and what can be released. It helps you deploy your limited resources, time, energy, emotional bandwidth, where they'll create the greatest impact. When helping others through difficulties, offering perspective becomes one of the most valuable gifts you can give. Not by minimizing their concerns, but by gently expanding the frame to include resources, possibilities, and time horizons they may not currently see. This widened view often reveals options that remain invisible when focusing solely on the problem. As you move through today's challenges, remember to regularly step back and see them within the tapestry of your larger life. This practice doesn't eliminate difficulties, but it transforms your relationship to them, creating the space for wisdom, possibility, and peace even amidst life's inevitable storms. So, let's recap. To train your mind to be calm in every situation, start by shifting your perception. Use the pause principle to create space between what happens and how you respond. Focus on what you can control, practice gratitude, and learn to let go. Build resilience by facing challenges head-on and support your mental health with a solid routine. And always remember to keep the bigger picture in mind. These tools aren't just for handling stress, they're for living a better, more peaceful life.